Imagine stepping into a boxing ring, but you are completely blindfolded.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. And you know there's an opponent in there with you. You can, like, hear them moving around on the mat, but you have absolutely no idea where they are.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. Just total helplessness.
Exactly. And suddenly, bam, you take a hit to the jaw,
Mm.
and then maybe a hook to the ribs. You can't see the punches coming. You obviously can't block, and you certainly can't hit back.
Right, because you don't even know where to aim.
Yeah. You're essentially just standing there like a punching bag,
Yeah.
waiting for the next strike.
And, unfortunately, that perfectly captures the psychological reality of the first few months or sometimes even years after receiving a chronic neurological diagnosis.
Yeah, and if you listening have ever dealt with a chronic condition or, even just watched a family member navigate a difficult diagnosis, you know exactly how overwhelming that initial period is.
It really is. It feels exactly like you're fighting in the dark.
So today, the mission for this deep dive is to basically take off that blindfold.
Mm-hmm.
We're exploring this really cutting-edge intersection where psychology fundamentally alters neurology.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It really is. Specifically, we're looking at how the human brain manages chronic conditions, and we're using Parkinson's disease as our primary lens today.
Right, and we have some incredible sources on the table. We're pulling insights from a stack of clinical protocols, research summaries, and internal frameworks from the European Parkinson Therapy Centre in Borio, Italy.
Founded by Alex Reed, right?
Yes, exactly. And what's so compelling about the work coming out of the Borio Center is that they treat psychological shifts, things like, acceptance and comprehension. They don't treat them as fluffy, feel-good coping mechanisms.
Right, not just like positive thinking.
No, not at all. They treat them as actual, measurable biological triggers. So for you listening, this deep dive is going to hopefully provide some profound aha moments about how exactly your mind and body are fundamentally entangled.
Yeah, because the protocols we are discussing aren't just for Parkinson's. I mean, they are highly actionable tools for tackling literally any overwhelming long-term challenge.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right into the core framework they use to bring patients out of that terrified reactive state in the boxing ring. It's called the ACMA protocol. ACMA.
Right. Accept, comprehend, motivate, which, this clinical literature often actually refers to as conviction and action.
Accept, comprehend, motivate, action. And the golden rule here is sequence, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to do them in order. The sequence is non-negotiable because, well, you simply cannot take effective, sustained action if you are still, refusing to look at the reality of your situation.
You're still wearing the blindfold.
Right. You have to start with the A, acceptance.
Yeah.
Taking off the blindfold so you can actually see your opponent.
I'm going to dig into the biology of this because I feel like it's so easy to just tell someone, hey, just accept it.
Oh, yeah. Which is the most frustrating advice ever.
It really is. But there is actual hard science backing up why fighting a diagnosis physically harms you. Like Dr. John Kabat-Zinn's fMRI research on mindfulness and physical sensation. It is incredible.
It really is groundbreaking. He looked at what happens in the brain when a patient actively fights a physical symptom, like, say, a tremor in their hand.
So what exactly is happening there?
Well, when you have a tremor and your internal monologue is going, I hate this is wrong, make it stop, you are attaching a severe negative judgment to a physical reality.
Okay.
And in the brain, that judgment is interpreted as an immediate life-threatening danger. So your amygdala, which is the brain's primitive fear and alarm center, it just lights up like a Christmas tree.
And when that alarm goes off, the whole body goes into lockdown.
Exactly. The amygdala triggers the HPA axis. That's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Right, the stress response.
Yeah, it's a cascade of stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline, just flooding your system. And, adrenaline's main job is to prepare you to fight or flee, so it instantly increases muscle tension in your heart rate.
Oh, wow. So by psychologically fighting the tremor, you are physically tensing the very muscles that are shaking.
Yes. You biologically make the tremor significantly worse.
That is wild. But the fMRI scans showed the total opposite effect when patients simply observed the tremor without judgment, right?
Yeah, they did. When they practice pure acceptance, which is just acknowledging the sensation without labeling it as a total catastrophe, the amygdala stayed quiet.
So the stress cascade never triggers.
Exactly. Acceptance literally dampens the brain's distress centers. Now, I mean, it doesn't cure the tremor, obviously, but it prevents the brain from amplifying it.
That makes so much sense, and it ties so perfectly into Dr. Felicity Baker's research on how patients integrate chronic illness into their daily lives.
Oh, her work on denial is fascinating.
It really is. She looked at how denial practically guarantees medical noncompliance. Like, patients who refuse to take off the blindfold often just, quote-unquote, forget to take their medication.
Right, but it's not actually a memory issue.
No, it's because swallowing that pill is a daily, physical reminder that their body is failing.
It's a huge identity threat. If you are in denial, the medication is the enemy. It's proof that you're sick.
Exactly. But Baker found that patients who reach acceptance experience this total paradigm shift. They view that exact same pill not as a reminder of failure, but as like a tool for freedom.
Yeah, it becomes the weapon they use to punch back at the opponent.
Which naturally sets up the C in the ACMA protocol, right?
Yeah.
Comprehension.
Comprehension. Once you accept the opponent is in the ring, you have to study their moves.
Right. The clinical term in the sources here is health literacy.
Huh.
It's moving from, oh my God, what is happening to me, to, okay, here is the exact mechanism of what is happening, and here's how I manage it.
And there is a landmark study from our materials called the ProPath study that actually quantifies exactly how powerful this comprehension step is.
What did they do in that study?
Well, they took a group of patients and provided them with highly individualized, really mechanical education about their specific condition.
So not just handing them a generic WebMD printout.
No. They made sure the patients truly comprehended their own unique neurochemistry.
And the results were actually measurable.
Highly measurable. The group that received this intensive comprehension training saw a solid 10% decrease in their overall symptom scores.
Wait, a 10% drop just from learning about the disease?
Just from learning. And more importantly, it actually flattened their disease progression curve compared to a control group. The control group's symptoms sharply rose over that exact same period.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because that blows my mind. It sounds like health literacy isn't just, acquiring knowledge so you can win a trivia night.
No, definitely not.
By understanding the mechanics of the disease, you're essentially updating your brain's software so your body's hardware stops overreacting to every new symptom as a lethal threat.
That is the perfect analogy. You are literally rewriting the threat assessment code. In psychology, researchers refer to this as the shift from primary appraisal to secondary appraisal.
Okay, break those down for me.
Sure. Primary appraisal is when your brain says, oh no, this is a threat. Secondary appraisal is when your brain follows up and asks, wait, do I have the tools to handle this threat?
Ah, I see.
Yeah. And when your software is updated through comprehension, the answer to that second question becomes yes. Your nervous system downregulates, your baseline cortisol drops, and as a result, your physical motor functions actually improve.
That is incredible. All right, so we've accepted the opponent. We comprehend their moves. Now, we need the M in the protocol.
Right, motivate, or what the clinical data refers to as conviction.
And I have to admit, I struggle a little bit here. Like, is belief really enough to alter a degenerative brain disease? I mean, isn't telling someone they just need conviction leaning a bit into, I don't know, toxic positivity?
I get why you'd say that. And it would be toxic positivity if we were talking about blindly ignoring the negative, just putting on a happy face.
Right.
But remember, conviction only comes after acceptance and comprehension. It is a grounded, highly informed belief in your own agency.
Okay, that distinction makes sense.
And scientifically, conviction is categorized into actual constructs like self-efficacy and behavioral intention. What a patient fundamentally believes about their ability to manage their illness is often a stronger predictor of their long-term physical outcome than the actual clinical severity of their disease at diagnosis.
Because conviction literally triggers a chemical event. Reading Dr. Lidstone's research on the expectancy effect just completely blew me away.
Oh, the expectancy effect is one of the most incredible phenomena in neurology. Lidstone and other researchers found that when a patient is genuinely deeply convinced that a therapeutic intervention is going to work, their brain actually releases endogenous dopamine.
Endogenous meaning they make it themselves?
Yeah.
And dopamine is exactly what the Parkinson's brain is lacking.
Exactly. The brain manufactures its own medicine. It releases this dopamine directly into the striatum.
What does the striatum do?
Again, to give you a mental picture, the striatum is kind of like the brain's dispatch center for physical movement. When you want to walk or, reach for a glass of water, the striatum sends out the signal.
Okay, got it.
But dopamine is the key that starts the dispatch cars. Without it, the signals just get stuck in the garage, leading to stiffness or tremors. Lidstone's research proves that pure conviction, the absolute belief in a positive outcome, manufactures the keys to start those cars.
That is staggering. So conviction isn't just a motivational poster. It is a physical, chemical event that temporarily improves motor function.
It really is.
But there's a flip side to this that Dr. Bogart explores in her research on illness identity. It's known as the mirror effect.
Yes, the mirror effect. This is crucial.
Basically, if you view yourself primarily as a sick person, society mirrors that right back to you. You elicit pity.
And pity is a highly, highly destructive social currency. Bogart's research demonstrates that when a patient internalizes pity, it leads to a very rapid functional decline. You become this passive object of care rather than an active participant in your own life.
Well, wait, let me push back on the mechanics of this a bit. Are we really saying that how, like, the cashier at the grocery store or a random neighbor treats a patient physically accelerates their disease progression?
Indirectly, yes. I mean, humans are deeply social creatures, and our nervous systems are constantly co-regulating with the people around us.
Right. We pick up on each other's vibes, essentially.
Exactly. If you identify as a person managing Parkinson's rather than a victim of Parkinson's, you project competence, you walk differently, you speak differently.
And create a virtuous cycle.
Yes. When you project agency, strangers, family members, and even your doctors treat you as a capable partner. That positive social reinforcement validates your secondary appraisal that I can handle this software we talked about, which keeps your stress hormones low and your dopamine pathways as optimized as possible.
So your conviction dictates the world's treatment of you, and then their treatment reinforces your internal neurochemistry.
You nailed it.
Man, that is powerful. So we've established how powerful conviction is, which brings us to a really difficult reality that the sources bring up.
Yeah.
What happens when the brain's motivation center physically breaks down?
Yeah.
Because the Bewario Center's active protocol highlights a very specific, very dangerous threat here,
Yeah.
which is apathy.
Yeah, this is a massive clinical distinction, and it's one that caregivers absolutely must understand. Apathy is a profound loss of motivation and goal-direct behavior. And in the context of Parkinson's, it is not the same thing as depression.
Really? Because they sound so similar.
They look similar from the outside, but structurally they're different. Apathy affects roughly 40 to 70% of Parkinson's patients, and it is a structural hardware problem, not a psychological mood issue.
Okay, break down the hardware problem for us. Why can't a patient just, quote unquote, think their way out of feeling unmotivated? What is physically stopping them?
It's a breakdown in a specific neural highway called the mesocorticolimbic pathway.
Mesocorticolimbic pathway.
It's a mouthful. Think of the brain's prefrontal cortex as the planning department, right? It decides, hey, let's go for a walk.
Okay.
Then the limbic system is the reward center. It provides that feeling of satisfaction for taking the walk. The mesocorticolimbic pathway is the highway that connects those two departments, and it runs entirely on dopamine.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah.
So as dopamine-producing cells die off, the highway literally crumbles.
Exactly. The bridge is out. The patient can still intellectually plan to go for a walk. The prefrontal cortex is working. But because that highway is disconnected, their brain cannot accurately forecast the reward of doing it.
So the effort required feels monumental, and the anticipated pleasure registers as literally zero.
Right. So naturally, they simply stop trying.
And I read in the sources that treating this apathy with standard antidepressants like SSRIs can actually make the lack of motivation worse.
Yes, it can.
Why would doctors prescribe them if they do damage?
Because, like we said, apathy looks exactly like depression from the outside. A patient sitting on the couch all day refusing to engage seems depressed.
Right.
But SSRIs work by increasing serotonin. If you try to fix a collapsed dopamine highway by flooding the system with serotonin, you aren't repairing the bridge. In fact, altering the serotonin balance can sometimes blunt emotions even further, which just exacerbates the apathy. You're basically trying to fix a plumbing issue with an electrician's tools.
Wow. The analogy they use in the internal documents to describe the reality of apathy is haunting. They say every time you say no, you are closing a door. At the end, you will be sitting in a dark room with all the doors locked.
It's a terrifying trajectory. The patient's world just shrinks and shrinks until it's literally only the size of their living room chair.
But Alex Reed, the founder of the center, has this incredibly pragmatic and honestly pretty funny behavioral hack to fight this. He calls it the piggy bank rule.
I love this one.
It's so good. He tells patients to sit down with the families and make a strict agreement. Every single time anybody in the house says no to an activity, whether it's going out for a coffee, taking a walk, having a friend over, they have to put a €1 coin into a piggy bank.
Yeah, and he jokes that by the end of the year, you'll have enough money to go to Australia alone on a one-way ticket.
It's brilliant because it forces hyper-awareness, right?
Exactly. Apathy makes no the default setting because it requires zero energetic calculation from a broken reward system. It's just easy. By charging a literal immediate toll for saying no, you force the brain out of its default mode. It adds a tiny friction to withdrawal.
And it gives caregivers a framework to understand what's happening. I mean, it's so easy to feel resentful when your loved one refuses to get off the couch. It just looks like laziness.
Right, it feels personal.
Yeah. But when you understand that their biological starter motor is broken, it replaces resentment with strategy.
It's empathy through education. But, behavioral hacks only go so far when the hardware is failing.
Right, you still need dopamine.
Which is why the medical field is aggressively pursuing pharmacological bridges for that broken highway. For instance, there's a novel drug currently in phase 1b trials called IRL-757.
IRL-757, what does that do?
It is specifically designed to artificially restore the signal transmission between the prefrontal cortex and the deeper brain regions. It's not an antidepressant. It's an apathy treatment designed specifically to get that cortical highway back online.
Bringing the hardware back online so the software can run.
Exactly.
But until those highly targeted drugs are, universally available, we have to rely on the final, crucial step of the ACMA protocol, action. The internal documents state it so plainly. Thought without action is like eating with no food.
It's true. Acceptance, comprehension, and conviction, those are all invisible. Action is where the rubber meets the road.
So the Barorio Center uses this education protocol and a weekly active management tracker. And what I love is how they completely avoid textbook jargon here.
Yeah, they keep it very practical.
Because there are over 40 different symptoms related to Parkinson's.
Yeah.
If you try to tackle the disease as a whole, you freeze. So they break it down into actionable buckets: motor, cognitive, tremor, and non-motor.
Right, and by isolating the symptoms into these buckets, you can target specific actions.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. If the issue is bradykinesia, which is the slowness and shrinking of movement that happens with Parkinson's, the action is big movements.
Like
exaggerated stepping, really wide arm swings, boxing. And if the symptom is a softening of the voice, which happens as vocal cords lose muscle tone, the action is voice power exercises.
So reading out loud, projecting from the diaphragm, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But the absolute secret sauce of this entire protocol, the thing that ties all the neurobiology and psychology together, is what their 2026 strategy calls the gold rule.
The gold rule.
Yeah. It dictates exactly when these actions must happen. It's this very specific 20-minute window.
Okay, this is the perfect marriage of pharmacology and behavioral action. The gold rule states that patients must perform their high-intensity work, their big movements, their boxing, their voice power exercises, exactly 45 to 60 minutes after taking their dopaminergic medication.
Right.
Why that specific window? I mean, why not just work out whenever you have the time?
Because that 45 to 60-minute mark is when the exogenous dopamine from the pill hits its absolute peak concentration in the bloodstream and the brain.
Ah, so the brain has its maximum level of chemical fuel right then.
Exactly. We're talking about neuroplasticity here. The brain's ability to wire new, healthy neural pathways to bypass damaged ones. And that process requires high levels of dopamine.
So if you just exercise whenever you feel like it, say like 3 hours after your pill, when your dopamine is low, what happens?
Well, you still get cardiovascular benefits, sure, but you are not maximizing neuroplasticity. You have to push the neural pathways at the exact moment the brain is flooded with the chemical resources needed to actually rebuild them.
You literally have to strike while the iron is hot.
Yes.
You are charting your daily actions to match the exact curve of your daily medication.
Yeah.
But the protocol is equally sting about what you do when the iron is cold.
Yes, acknowledging the off times.
Right. When the medication wears off and the body becomes rigid or fatigued, the protocol doesn't say, like, push through the pain like a warrior.
No, absolutely not, because pushing through the pain when your dopamine is depleted just spikes cortisol and triggers the amygdala all over again. We're back to the blindfolded boxing ring.
Exactly. Instead, you pivot. You use the off time to do a crossword puzzle for the cognitive bucket, or you simply focus on drinking your required glasses of water for the non-motor bucket.
Right, you work with the brain's chemical tides rather than constantly fighting against them.
It's a profound shift in identity. You transition from being a passive recipient of a degenerative disease to being the active manager of a highly complex, fluctuating biological system.
It really gives the power back to the patient.
It does. So let's look at the incredible journey we've mapped out today for you listening. We start in the boxing ring, blindfolded. First, we use acceptance to take the blindfold off, which biologically quiets the amygdala and stops the flood of stress hormones that amplify our symptoms.
Right.
Then we use comprehension to study the opponent, updating our mental software to lower our baseline cortisol. That understanding builds conviction, which actually manufactures endogenous dopamine in the striatum, proving that belief literally alters biology.
It's amazing.
And finally, we take action, timing our most intense physical efforts to perfectly align with our brain's peak chemical fuel. It is such an empowering framework. And whether you are managing Parkinson's disease, recovering from an injury, or honestly simply facing a massive life transition, understanding the why behind your body's reactions gives you the power to proactively manage your life, rather than being a victim of circumstance.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the why, and we'll catch you next time.
Actually, before we go, I'll leave you with one final thought to mull over, straight from the latest experimental research happening right now.
Oh, lay it on us.
Scientists have been studying an amino acid called D-serine. In mouse models of neurodegeneration, they found that introducing D-serine didn't just protect the brain. It actually stimulated the healthy, surviving neurons to physically branch out.
Wait, really?
Yes, they literally grew new dendrites to wire around the lost dopamine cells, creating a physical detour to bypass the damage entirely. So if our brains can be chemically and behaviorally encouraged to structurally bypass their own failing pathways, are we entering an era where treating chronic illness looks less like managing inevitable decline and more like active neurological gardening? Imagine what that means for the future of human resilience.